Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Art Moves podcast. Today, we have the lovely Stephen Frost and Kim Estes McCarty in conversation. Stephen was PlatteForum's most recent resident artist. He hung out with Art Lab and worked to create an exhibition this last summer in 2021. Stephen is an interdisciplinary artist with a focus on textiles, memes, queer history, pop culture, and community development in DIY spaces. He is also a professor of media studies at the University of Colorado Boulder. And Kim is PlatteForum's Executive Director, and she has been with PlatteForum for about 5 years. So together, these two cover all kinds of topics, from working with youth to organizational equity, queer art, fiber art, and all of the changes that PlatteForum is going through. So stay tuned to see the new work created by Stephen Frost and the Art Lab interns. You can visit our website at platteforum.org, platteforum.org.
Hi, I'm Stephen Frost.
Hi, I'm Kim Estes McCarty.
Oh, Kim, it's so wonderful to be with you here today and to chat about art in Denver and, of course, about PlatteForum and to talk a little bit about my residency there. I can't wait to have this conversation with you.
Well, I'm honored that you asked me to be your guest.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't think of anyone else. I was thinking, like, who should I ask? I mean, Esther, who organized this, was like, you should ask someone to come in and talk to you about your process and about your residency. And I said, my whole practice is about, community, textile, working. The public is like part of my work. And I was like, Kim is the perfect person to talk to.
Well, I'm very flattered.
So I'm really glad I could get into your schedule. I know you're a very busy and overcommitted person, which I can relate to. How many boards are you on, Kim?
Right now, I'm not on any.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Because I've been, since I've been an ED, it just wasn't working out to be on a board. But I do a lot of things outside of PlatteForum.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So today, Kim, I thought we would talk a little bit about, we'll talk a little bit about me, and we'll talk a little bit about you.
It is your podcast.
It is, I guess it is my podcast. So actually, I want to start off just talking a little bit about PlatteForum and like what it is. I know it was started back in 2002.
Mm-hmm.
And was it Judy Anderson and Mark Smith? Did you know Judy and Mark at all, Kim?
Back then, I did not.
Okay.
And Judy obviously is the core of who we are as an educator and artist. And then she partnered with Mark Smith, who is the founder of East West Partners, the development company that has done a lot of work here in Denver, but obviously down in Riverfront Park, where we used to be located. And at the time, that was considered an underserved community, which is interesting because now it's the most expensive real estate in Denver. And that's why we ended up leaving there before I got here to move into the Rhino area, Five Points area.
And is that where the name PlatteForum comes from, the Platte River?
It was on the Platte, yes.
Yeah.
It's funny now. We've toyed with changing our name. We just haven't gotten that far yet because we've had people ask us, do you guys help clean up the Platte River? Is that what your organization does? So it's kind of hard to explain it sometimes with the river is in our name, but people know us well enough in the arts and cultures sector.
It's funny, when I moved to Denver, in my head, before I actually, I read about this residency, and I had friends who had done this residency. I believe I had a friend who did this residency right after who I knew from grad school. And in my head, it was like a building literally like overlooking the Platte River. And then when I moved to Denver, I was like, the Platte River is not so big.
Nope, it's not. I don't know if it's quite a river when it goes through Denver.
I mean, in that kind of western river sense.
Not like the Colorado.
Yes, there's like a couple big ones, but all the small ones. Anyway, just talking a little bit about PlatteForum. So what year did you come on here, Kim?
I've been here 5.5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been an amazing ride. And The organization has evolved a lot in the last 5.5 years, I will say. Judy and her team and Trish, who was the ED, did an amazing job, and it languished a little bit after they left. And then we came in with a whole new crew and kind of revitalized it and made sure it kept its doors open. And the team that we have now, everybody's been involved in the last 5.5 years, contributed to everything we did, from Rebecca Vaughn and Amanda Flores to all the amazing board members we've had. Beth Moisky and Keith Ambiel and Michael Gadlin, Daniel Flora were the first people I brought onto the board. And it just really changed the dynamics of the organization. One thing we've worked really hard at over the last 5.5 years is getting better at making sure our organization reflects who we serve.
Yeah.
When I walked in the door, it was me and 5 board members, and all of us were white cisgendered people. And I looked around, I'm like, that's not who we serve, is it? And so that's when I made the phone call to Michael, because he was a former resident artist and just wanted to get more artists involved, more youth involved, and reflect the community we serve, which is primarily BIPOC and LGBTQIA+. So we've worked so hard at that now 51% of our combined board and staff actually are former or current clients of PlatteForum.
Oh, I love that.
So either former artists, former interns, current artists. So we're just really, really proud of what we've created in the last 5.5 years.
That's amazing. And so you have a lot of experience, and I know you, I've had many hats in my life as well. And I know you've had a lot of hats and come from different structures as well. I think you came from fashion. You said you worked in media. You have a background in journalism. And that's where you started at Arizona State in journalism and communication. So when we look at PlatteForum, and I know you came in and you made some changes, like meat and potatoes, what is the structure of PlatteForum? How do you, people are listening and they want to start, people are always like, I always talk to graduate students, right, who are, I'm going to start a nonprofit arts organization and work with the community. So how does it work? Like, there's board members, you have some of current PlatteForum interns are on the board, former artists. Like, what is the whole structure? How does it work?
Pretty much the organization is set up that everything umbrellas under Art Lab. And Art Lab is our internship for teens from historically marginalized communities.
Yeah.
And it's a 2 to 3 year internship. And when I first got to the organization, we had a lot of different programs, like the residency was considered separate, and then Art Lab, and then we had another thing called Learning Lab, which was more for younger kids. And what we realized is that we just needed to kind of bring it all together into one thing. So the residency even falls underneath Art Lab because they work with the Art Lab kids. When we bring in younger kids from, like, say, a Colfax Community Network, an organization like that, or Big Brothers and Big Sisters, they also work with the Art Lab interns.
Okay.
Which creates a lovely dynamic because the little kids get to look up to our teenagers and who they get to be seen as a mentor and as a leader, and it really helps those leadership skills. So we pretty much, everything umbrellas under Art Lab. Now, we do have ancillary programs that we bring in occasionally, like we did the Immigrant Artist Mentor Program.
Oh, yeah, it's an amazing program.
With the New York Foundation for the Arts, which we're so proud we were asked to be part of that. So occasionally we will have these little satellite programs that don't directly go under Art Lab, but they have to be mission driven, which that absolutely was, because it's a social justice topic. So everything comes under that. And so that's why we have Art Lab interns on the board. That's why we have past resident artists on the board, and our staff. I mean, half of our staff are former Art Lab interns that we hired after they graduated, which is, they work part-time where they're going to school or whatever they're doing. So that is always our linchpin. That is, what do the youth think? What do the artists think? When we're in a board meeting, the board will turn to the youth and say, what do you all think? They'll look at, Gadlin and the other artist and Autumn that are on, and what do you think? And that is just how we think. We have this group think about who we serve. Tell us what you need. Tell us what you want. Tell us what we're doing wrong. And I'm really proud of that the board really and the staff are really into that they get that's who we are. Yeah. And that's how we make decisions. Like, as you know, I'm retiring at the end of October.
I know, you're retiring at the end of October.
I know.
Are you retiring? Like, are you going to, have an alpaca farm somewhere or something?
I don't think I'll have an alpaca farm. We'll talk about that in a minute. But, and to getting back how we involve the youth and artists, but part of the piece of hiring my replacement is there will be a panel that has interns on it, it has staff on it, and it has board members on it and artists. And so everybody gets a say in who ends up sitting in my seat.
I love that. And I love that there's this great, it's just so great, you know, with nonprofits, everybody, and with arts organizations, right? They go off on these little tangents, these little branches, right? And that's kind of great. That's the great thing about working in arts. But I love that you guys just bring it back to the mission. That seems like just such a good guiding principle. You know, what are some of the things that came from your youth board members? Like, what are some of the critiques that surprised you that you all have implemented into the system here? And if you don't want to share those things, that's fine. But I'd just be curious to know.
A lot of it's language and how we use language and what we say, and trying to get rid of the language of oppression. Yeah. Just common sayings you say, and if you stop and think about them.
Yes.
Like something like circle the wagons, or just some silly little idiom that you don't think anything about. Sure. It can create harm. And that is probably the biggest thing that I've seen from the youth. Mm-hmm. When we had our first 2 youth board members, Rogelio and Leilani, we were in the process of rewriting our mission, vision, and values. Mm-hmm. And they were so instrumental in how we did that. There was a lot of white saviorism that sometimes board members will get into.
And a nonprofit supporting youth, white saviorism? I can't believe
it's crazy. And helping them disentangle themselves from that mentality. It was really those 2 youth members that drove that.
Oh my gosh. That's a lot of work for...
But they did it so eloquently and so effortlessly. Yeah. Nobody felt like they were being schooled. Yeah. It was this amazing give and take and learning moment. And just to give you an example, they kept wanting to put the word help, not the kids, but the board in our mission, vision, and values. Right. And like, do you understand how the word help is a little offensive? And they explained it to the rest of the board because they're doing the hard work. So, we really refocused how we talk about what we do, and that we provide resources. Yeah. Because all the work comes from the kids. Yeah. All the work comes from the interns and the artists. We don't, we're not doing the heavy lifting. We like to say we're the megaphone, not the message.
I love that.
And so we provide the infrastructure and the resources, but everything else is driven by the artist and the kids. Mm-hmm. And so that was really nice because it was the first time we'd had youth on the board. Mm-hmm. And it really set the stage for the rest of the board of how the artist and the youth interact on the board. And that's been amazing. And a fun little story. Leilani was one of our first 2, along with Rogelio, our first youth board members. Mm-hmm. Leilani just returned from, they had a full ride over at, was it RISD? Not RISD, I'm sorry, Micah in Maryland. Is back
Never heard of it.
Back from college. And now was just voted just recently, a couple months ago, onto the board as a full voting adult board member. So,
that's so cool.
So she's come full circle. And that's absolutely one of my favorite stories.
So she finished school and moved back to Denver?
Yes.
Heck yeah, that's awesome.
And so I got on the phone, we need you on the board. And so we created a new artist voice position called Emerging Artist Voice Position, since she's young and, young in her art career. And so it's really cool to see that people coming full circle. Esther, our associate director, used to be a resident artist. She's now our associate director. It's fun to see that type of people coming back. And PlatteForum always manages to stay a part of people's lives. It's fun to see our interns come back, our artists always come back and stay engaged with us. And that's my favorite thing.
I mean, that's how you build community, right? Is you don't, there's I'm really interested in community-based arts. It's something that I was very critical of probably when I was a graduate student, as seeing it as sort of social practice, as a sort of like Band-Aid for wealthy museums to feel like good about these things, right? And even here in Colorado, there's the model where the artist shows up in a town, makes a thing. I made a big tower in your village, and then I'm not talking about that's not a real thing. I made that up, everybody. I'm not talking about any art collectives or anything. And then they go, right? And that's it. Like, I'm here, I made you this thing, hope you like it, and then I'm gone, right? And PlatteForum works a little bit differently. And that's the thing that's how I got involved with you, was through like coming to openings and everybody's so friendly and these kind of moments.
You helped
right?
with the drag show that
Yeah,
the
I helped
interns
with the
did, the
drag
senior
show.
drag show. Yeah.
That was a huge moment for me, actually. That drag show was really important for me in many ways, and I really loved it. So yeah, and you all brought me closer in that experience, and I really feel it working with you all, and I've always felt it, that you don't just move people through, right? I've unfortunately become the director of an arts organization in the last year, and I always, and I think a lot about what you guys do here and how you build that, build community, and community is like, I want a better word than community that represents what you guys do here. Like
family.
It's like family. Absolutely. It's like a chosen family very much. I'd say it's queer in that very way. Right.
That's very much chosen family.
Yeah, for sure. And I just, I just think that is such an important model for us to look at, and moving away from this, like, obviously there is a model where an artist shows up and makes a mural, right? But then what's next, right? What does that mural represent if the artist doesn't then have a relationship with the people in that community that is sustained? And even if they live in another state or another country, right, you can still build that. So when artists come in, Kim, what do you, and I know this is maybe Esther's focus and maybe not necessarily what you do as the ED, but, when artists come in, how do you guys do that? How do you get them to, one, connect with the interns who are, like, they're definitely family. I mean, the interns have their own language. They have their, like, soundtrack. Yeah. They have everything, right?
They're so funny.
And so the artist is sort of this outsider who then has to rally them to help with their exhibition. So what are your strategies for, like, bringing people into the fold?
Well, it helps that, the interns are with us for 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
So they're very tight-knit group and close, and obviously close to the staff. They also help select the artist. So that artist isn't really that unknown to them by the time they get there. So they are part of that selection process.
Oh, cool.
As is the board and other community members and past artists. And so I think part of that is it, because when we select new art lab interns, when we select our artist, we bring in the community to do it. It's not just Esther and Kendall and I sitting in a room pointing at, okay, we'll take that,
that
those
person. Are great. Nice slides.
Yeah. And so it's never like that. It's a very lengthy process for both. And so people are aware of who's coming in when they do that in the first place. And Judy was very good at this. Judy Anderson, when she started, that it was like a community just kind of came in and surrounded the artist. What do you need? What like when Frankie Tone was actually Frankie Tone as a resident artist, another fiber artist.
Yeah.
Their first day was my first day on the job.
Oh my gosh.
And so watching that whole thing was just so fascinating to me, because Frankie's amazing with kids, but Frankie needed fiberfill. Yeah. So a call went out to the community, and everybody showed up with fiberfill. Yeah. And then Rebecca set up a stitch and bitch where you sit there and sew. And Rebecca carried on that tradition of just surrounding the artist with all this love and everything they need. And, what do you need from us? And, Kendall, and it used to be Amanda, work with the artist on what they're going to do with their curriculum. So they really felt supported there. Yeah. Pulling in the outside, Rebecca and Esther worked on pulling in the outside activist groups that matched up with their social justice topic. So we just bring in a lot of resources for them, so they don't feel like they're kind of flapping out in the breeze there. And that's not to say we haven't had things go off the rails. I mean, clearly pandemic.
We could talk about that.
Just so y'all know, Stephen was scheduled to be a resident artist a year ago.
What?
And we had to cancel it and bring them back in later. But so there's always learning moments that we get from every artist, and that's also the thing we do is we very much pay attention to what happens in every residency. And if something went a little funky or the artist wasn't comfortable with something, we make adjustments the next time. Yeah. In fact, every time we go to post our application, be it when Rebecca was here or when Esther was here, we sit down and re-look at it and add things. And I mean, to give you an example, this coming year, because social justice topics have become so much more emotion-provoking than they have in the past, I think. we are actually going to have Youth Scene, our mental health partner for our kids, to provide support for the artists when they come in too in this next fiscal year.
That's amazing.
We saw a lot of stuff come out with artists when they're addressing particularly the Black Lives Matter movement of the emotions it bring up can be just super intense and triggering. And so Youth Scenes is easy for me to say. Executive Director Dr. Tara J sits on our board. And so just kind of organically, they offered support to some of those artists.
Yeah.
And we're like, let's make this permanent.
That's brilliant.
So we do that a lot. Like, what can we add? What can we enhance? How can we make it better? Oh, when we did this did not work out. So it's really fun. We're very serious about making sure that they feel welcome, they feel loved, they feel supported. And so we're constantly pivoting. We do the same thing with the internship program too. It's like, how can we get better? What can we do differently? How do we strengthen this? And you have to truly believe in that or it doesn't work. And everybody on staff, everybody on the board with every fiber of their being believes in always pivoting and making things better. We did that through the pandemic.
Yeah.
We've always provided the mental health services, the social services, food support in a limited way, academic support to the interns. But the pandemic, we just took that stuff and put it on steroids.
Yeah.
We were delivering weekly groceries to the students and to some of our artists. We reached out to the artists in the temple as well, and our past artists to see who needed food support if they lost jobs or whatever it might be. So we just kind of blew all that up. And so we always continue to evolve things. So now we're opening a permanent food pantry in our new space.
Cool.
So past interns can come in, past artists can come in, whoever it is that needs support with the food, we'll be there for them. And we have a partnership with Food Bank of the Rockies that's been very, very helpful.
Oh my gosh, what a cool model! And I'm just so impressed that I didn't know that y'all were going to build that mental health component into the residency. I mean, I've got to not to center myself, but I've gone to residencies before and been just freaking depressed, right? It's like isolation. Even when you're not dealing with serious topics, there is like, oh, I'm in this new town, I'm in this new space. It takes a lot. So having, and I for some reason never thought about that. I happened to go to a residency once where there was a artist/therapist who was there, and that was the first time where I was like, oh yeah, this is a mental health problem. We're all not really healthy at this moment, because her whole thing was that she goes to residencies and does like counseling. That's like her art project.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah, she's Canadian, of course.
They're always so friendly.
I know, right? She's amazing. But that aspect is just brilliant to integrate that. And food scarcity is so important, right? How many artists and how many youth are just like, I really need this pen. I'm not going to eat I'll skip a meal.
Yeah, art supplies, food, medicine. It's hard. And I think one thing that the pandemic did is really, it shined a bright light on for more people what we already saw. Yeah. What we already saw. And, we kind of view that, our goal with Art Lab is to get, to provide the resources and remove the roadblocks to graduating from high school in time, preparing for post-secondary success. And my favorite part, to become socially engaged in your community, to create positive change. And so we kind of see our job as we're kind of the blocking and tackling in the front to get the roadblocks out of the way. And you can provide the most lovely programming on the planet, but if you're not helping address those roadblocks, you're not going to see those graduation rates. So that's whether it be food insecurity or just, I don't fit in at my school and I need somebody to talk to about it. Yeah. It could be any of the above. We've had kids that have experienced homelessness in our program. We've had kids that are DACA recipients. And so, they, during the last administration, they lived in constant fear. Yeah, of course. So providing those types of services and having the safe place that PlatteForum is, and for the artist as well, that they feel like they can talk about anything, is so important. And particularly when you're a teenager. And I think that was the hardest thing through the pandemic for them, is the isolation. They felt they didn't have that safe space. And we were really worried through the pandemic when we went to virtual programming, we would lose a lot of our interns because they were already all day long in school doing, virtual thing. But they all showed up because they needed that community. They needed those people they trusted. And this blew my mind. when we opened up the application process this year for the kids that start in the fall, quadruple the number of our highest number we've ever had of applications.
Oh, that's because Frankie and I were hitting it really hard on social media.
Well, thank you.
No, just kidding. I'm trying to do credit for that. Though, no, that's amazing.
It's just the kids need it, you know?
They do.
They need that place that a teacher's not telling them they're doing something wrong, a parent, you know, and don't get me wrong, because I'm a parent, so we all have our roles, but they just need a safe space where they're away from that they can talk about what they want to talk about. And the same for the artist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when I've come in, well, the first time I worked with PlatteForum, like I said, was with the drag show that they organized Esther helped organize at the Underground Music Festival. And I hadn't done drag since college, which for me was 2000.
Not as far back as when I was in college.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad. There was definitely, it was Bush was president. I'll just say that. And the second one, not the first one. I'm not that old. No. And that was the first time that I'd worked with PlatteForum, and I came in, and I think that, you know, my own relationship to gender identity and masculinity and queerness is not always something as an educator. You know, I work in higher ed. It's always something that is there's a fear when you work with youth, for me sometimes, of being totally myself, right? That might be something that could be used against me, right? And I think that's from growing up in the 90s and, you know, seeing that sort of conservative dominance in certain fields, and you know, even sometimes in the arts, there's you know, donors, or, you know, we couldn't. And, you know, just the other day I was having a conversation with a curator about an artist who we both loved, and they were like, yeah, but X gallery will never carry them because the work's too feminist, right? You know, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so depressing. But I was like, even in Denver. But just to say that, like, I showed up to rehearsal with the students here, with the interns here at PlatteForum, and I felt like I felt freer than I had felt at CU Boulder, where I teach, right? The students were kind of a guide for me to let go and be comfortable around them. And, you know, I felt like I carried a lot of, you know, just to talk about that performance. I mean, it was, you know, it was dumb. I made a prairie dress. I sang Casey Musgraves, right? And was working with the students, but they were all so confident in themselves. You know, Axel, right, who now works for you.
Who's now on staff.
Who's on staff, who's amazing. And you know, some of the other students in that senior class were, you know, did my makeup and glittered my beard and told me I walked like a box. In the sweetest way. I was like, as did my husband. My husband was like, yeah, you kind of walk like a awkward box. That makes sense. And I was like, yeah. But anyway, this space, right? Coming into work with those students was like, no, I could really just be myself in this space and not have to be guarded and not have to, you know, and you'd imagine that a person who is a person in their late 30s at the time and is an adult and open and, you know, queer, and you'd imagine I wouldn't have those things to hold in, but it's so surprising you don't necessarily see them until you're somewhere where it's not necessary, right? And, you know, it was amazing. I had such a good time working with them, and they did my makeup, and it was amazing, and they were all so free in a way that I was like, I want to work with LGBTQIA youth. That was like, after that experience, I was like, this is amazing. And then I
remember when you applied after that, and I was like, all excited.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, I mean,
and I don't get involved in the selection. I want to have plausible deniability, so I stay out of it. And mostly because I don't want some donor going, hey, I got this artist, I want to get in here if I give you this donation. So I stay totally out of it. But I was secretly rooting for you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And I loved your staff. I loved the interns. It was amazing. And
we work really hard to create that safety that you're talking about, that desire to bare your soul, because you know it's not gonna hit you over the head later. Somebody's not gonna come back at you with it. And I have to give complete credit to the two people that have run Art Lab since I've been here, and that's Amanda Flores and Kendall Kulchen.
Yeah.
they just create this loving environment. You know, we call people in instead of calling them out. We do everything from a place of love. And if somebody says, you know, something off color or the wrong thing, it's not like, I can't believe you said that. It's like, you know, this is a learning moment. Let's talk about that. And it's just amazing to watch how that happens, that they just really want to hear all the views. They're not standing in the corner with their arms crossed saying, I don't believe in what you're saying. It's very much like, let's talk about it. You know, we know to make great change, you need to bring people along with you. And if you're making other people feel bad, no, there's some people that should feel bad, but but just, you know, people that just don't know better.
This isn't a podcast about Brett Kavanaugh.
Or I can name a whole laundry list. Just to come from that place like, hey, you know what? Let me explain to you why what you said hurt me.
Yeah.
I'm not mad at you. You didn't know that. So, you know, let me help educate you. And so that's what the kids have really brought to everyone.
Yeah.
And again, I'm going to go back to crediting Amanda and Kendall for that, because they really create that vibe and make everybody feel safe and wanted, and that they can just bare their soul and not worry about how it's going to come back to haunt them later.
Yeah, there's a way in which, you know, here, and I've been here for 6 weeks now, working with the interns, and, you know, I was able to sort of get to know them quicker, right? I feel like because coming in, I knew a few of the senior workers, but I just felt it was very quick to get to know them and to understand where each of them was, and they were all also so, even when the students are not extroverts, there's a confidence that these platform interns have, which is incredible. Like total introvert interns, right? This is how I like to make art. This is, you know, what I'm into, and very like what 16, 17-year-old, 18-year-old can articulate those things. It just blows my mind for them to be so kind, articulate in their like personal like placement. Like, this is, you know, how I like to approach this art. Or also, like, we'll be listening to some music and they'll like, oh, I hate this person because blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, oh, God, these students are so, like, plugged in to everything.
They blow my mind every day.
I know. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do without them. I mean, can I just stay on the Instagram thread so that I can keep up with them?
I was not that smart or that plugged in when I was that age. I wasn't even remotely that aware of what was going on in the world when I was that age. And so they really are in touch with what's going on in the world. And what I love to seeing is somebody coming in their sophomore year and they're shy and they're quiet, and the layers who they are is inside. Yeah. And this program helps them find out who they really are and let that out. All these layers peel back, and then they're just out there and proud of who they are. And it's amazing. I just love to see the evolution of how they just really get in touch with who they are and what they want to be and what they want to do, and how they want to be in the world. And it's a very lovely thing.
And they really support each other.
Oh, they're amazing.
It's one thing to be like, I'm fabulous, right? Because I've met those students before. I've met those youths before. I love them. I love the fabulous youth, and all the platform students or interns are totally fabulous. Sorry, I'm professor, so I always say students, even when people are like my nephews. It doesn't make sense. It's my worldview. But they really support each other, right? And so going back to that idea of like family, communities, family here, it's amazing to have that structure where they understand where each other's at, right? Mm-hmm. And they meet people there. You know, they know each other's strengths, you know? And I think they work in a way that a family does work, where they are like, okay, I'm working on this project. Hey, you, I know this is something that you'd be interested in. Do you want to come over and help me with this, right? Mm-hmm. So as an instructor, an artist instructor in that room, I don't have to drag things out of people, right? Which I'm very used to doing with 21-year-olds and, 40-year-olds and 60-year-olds that I teach, I've worked with, right? And they work with each other in that space. And it's remarkable that type of collaboration. And I really love knowing the kind of structures, hopefully that will help them build after, right? I'm trying to be white savior here, but, there's a way in which I can imagine just knowing that those structures can exist, this alternative model, instead of, the academic model, which is very much about like self, like I'm getting this grade, I'm getting,
Well, you guys, academia pushes the information to them.
Yeah.
We don't do that.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you want?
Yeah.
What do you want to be pushed at you?
Yeah.
What do you want to hear from? What art form do you want to, what social justice topic do you want to discuss? So that's how we differ from academia. We're not pushing out, a mandated curriculum.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything is very much driven by the youth and the artist. And that's probably my favorite thing about it. That's why they feel safe. They know they're heard.
Yeah.
They know they're heard. The artists know they're heard. Everybody knows they're heard. So now we got to talk about you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have a little bit of time left. We can talk about me if you want.
Yeah. So I've been hanging out with artists for a long time. Why fiber? You don't see a lot of folks going to fiber. Although, Frankie was the first artist I work with, and they work in fiber. So
Frankie and I actually Frankie and I have actually worked together on a project pretty much constantly for the last 2 or 3 years. We've been collaborating on something all the time, and we're actually building these queer shields for the Center for Visual Arts in Denver. We have 27 because that's a prime number. Only divisible by itself. We decided 27 is the queerest number, so we made 27.
I love it.
We're like, it can't be divided in these. It can't be binary. It has to exist.
No, I love it.
Definition. So we're making these 27 kind of queer shields out of different colors of denim and like different forms of embellishment, and they're going to be part of the show on armor. Oh my gosh, Frankie and I have worked together on Haunted House. I was one of the artists for their Haunted House that they did last year.
Which our kids came to see.
Oh yeah, that was wonderful. But for me, fiber is this sort of fiber exists in a space between, right? Which is it's a very non-binary sort of material, right? Fiber is one of the oldest forms of kind of creative expression in many ways. People talk about the painted walls and in a cave or religious icons, but actually there's a lot of probably textiles that we don't see because they decayed and they didn't last because people used them, right? And that's this way in which people have a personal relationship with textiles that is more than a visual relationship, right? It is always, it's like fourth dimensional in that way. I was in undergraduate and I was making these god-awful paintings. I mean, I guess they were fine. I'm sure they're in my mom's basement somewhere or probably in her living room, embarrassingly, or something. But who knows what I haven't been to their house in like 2 years. I don't know what the decoration scheme is right now. But I was making these paintings of underwear that I had like ripped up and like re-sewn together and made these sort of like textile arrangements or collages with. And I made these textile collages, and it was underwear from a person who was my partner at the time. And so that was like, and I'd combined it with my underwear that my mom had saved. So it had like superheroes on it from the 80s. And it was like
Underoos?
Yeah, it was for Underoos, exactly. It was like Underoos and like kind of like gay brand adult underwear, like combined in a way now that I would like never do that. But because I don't think I had thought through that work. But anyway, I was like, oh, I'm homoeroticizing my childhood, which when you're 21 is okay, but now I would not do that. But but my teacher at the time, Mary Lum, who now teaches at Bennington College, and she's I think she has a residency at Mass MoCA this summer. She's freaking amazing, brilliant painter and educator, and changed my world. Mary Lum was like, you're not a very good painter, but this collage is awesome. You could just do textiles. And I was taking a color theory class from her at the time, and she taught me how to knit. And I had done some sewing. I mean, I grew up kind of like a proto-hippie in the 90s, so I made like, bell bottoms, and I did that thing where you patch up the side of your pants, that 90s thing, which I think kids are doing again. And
we did it in the 70s too.
You did in the 70s? Okay, I've been warning students not to do it. I've been like, okay, we don't really have to do that thing. But I was in Vermont, so we did those kind of proto-hippie things. It was pretty popular. Fish was big when I was in high school. Anyway, we did. I knew somewhat how to sew, and my mom was a nurse, so whenever I needed something mended, she would just sort of be like, "There's a sewing machine. I taught you how to use it. Have fun." And I would make these terrible mends, but she would be happy that it wasn't just a ripped hole in my pants. So she was like, "Good enough. Good. That's
that.
Great. It's beautiful." And I only wore vintage clothes and so I altered things, but that moment where Mary was like, oh, I don't have to do this language, this art language, right? I don't have to participate in this painting thing. That is, it's like I wanted to have a visual conversation, but I can do it with the materials that are evocative to me. And oil paint had always just is sort of, unexamined, even though it is the sort of like most, universal thing, but it also feels very unexamined as a medium. Like, where does this come from? Like, where are these things? Whereas textiles for me always seem like everybody thinks about it as a material, even when I've made it into a composition, right? Even when it's a large-scale weaving, or it's a upcycled garment, or part of a fashion piece, like you can see like denim and have these associations that are very personal. You can see like an underwear waistband or a belt or something, and even if it wasn't yours, I feel like there's always a point back to the body. And for me, that's really that relationship between the community, the viewer, the audience, that like really they complete it, right? That reaction, that experience, your grandmother did crochet in the 70s, or whatever it is, right? Everybody always has that story, and it never fails. Every single show. This reminds me of that. This reminds me of that. In a way that sometimes when I feel, and I'm not making my work oppositionally to, say, contemporary painting or contemporary photography, but in a way that I feel like textiles are approachable and have like a softness and a humanity to them in a way that contemporary art cannot achieve because it's so intellectualized in this way that, I love, obviously, I'm a professor of media studies. Like, I love intellectualizing things, but I'm not naive to think that doesn't create boundaries for people to engage with something, right? And I would rather have a little bit less boundaries. I'm even pretty okay with people touching my work in museums, even though they're not supposed to.
The docent, I'll yell at them.
Docents give up on my work. They're just like,
you have to touch it.
It's a 10-foot wall of fringe, and if you want to,
you have to touch it.
I mean, people are just like, oh, they turned their head. They're gonna touch
you
it.
want the movement. You want to feel that movement. I love that feel of fringe. That's awesome. So, with all that you just said, how has that all worked into your workshops you're doing with the youth and your residency with PlatteForum?
So, for my residency for PlatteForum, I've done these workshops. Last year I designed a pride flag for the city of Denver. Brendan Picar asked me to do that piece for Queer City the Plain show, and I developed a workshop about where people come in and think through the visual language of their community and develop a flag based on their community. And I'd done this workshop in some other places, but I was very, very, very excited to start off my residency by doing that workshop with the interns. And so knowing coming in that the platform was going to be moving to a new location, kind of starting maybe with a new executive director soon, and like shifting to a new place, I was thinking, well, like, what are the parts of this community that people want to codify, remember? And sometimes something like a symbol, can help people go back. Why is that blue in a flag? And, that becomes maybe abstracted, but also can become part of their history because I asked them to choose that. So I did this workshop with them, which is the flag design workshop, where we watch a TED Talk by Roman Mars about flags and cities. Then I brought in all these other flags and we critiqued them. Our interns think that the sun in the Denver city flag is far too small. Although I did explain to them it was actually the same size as the center of the sea of the Colorado. So it's this like the heart of the Colorado, right? So it has a symbolism too. And they were like, fine, it should be bigger. So then we talked about, what PlatteForum was to them and the things that we wanted to symbolize. We went through a whole design workshop and then developed a textile design for a flag for PlatteForum. And then building off of that, we thought about, I wanted to give them opportunities to have an individual kind of symbol. So we have a quilt, that like a small flag-like quilt that we've designed, and actually it's done. It's kind of gorgeous. And
it's gorgeous.
And each of them has a patch like on this quilt, right? Thinking about other kind of traditions. And then and then we brought in the flower symbol they wanted on the flag that represents the individuals of PlatteForum, and we put that in there. So for me, textile, they're part of flags, they're part of costumes, they're part of uniforms, right? And so I wanted for this residency to put those interns forward, and they're what brought me to this residency. So I wanted to be honest about what it was, right? So kind of the residency's for me about them, right? I've made tons of work about my identity and myself. So I mean, there'll be some of that in the show, and I'm going to re-show the rainbow flag as part of this exhibition as well, because I think it's something that they love. They were like, we love this piece. The interns actually were like, you should show it again. And I was like, oh, okay. So I'm gonna.
Is that this is the one we put on the postcard?
Yeah, it's the one you put on the postcard, and that'll be part of it.
It's
and
beautiful.
Then they're gonna make their own weavings that we're creating together over these weeks that'll be integrated into another larger composition, as well as the quilt, as well as the flag that they've designed. And David, one of the interns, made buttons of the flag that they're all wearing now.
I love it.
Which is exciting that they're adopting that visual language for themselves, and they kind of it's just lovely. So that's my goal, right? And because we're using textiles, we're also going to do like a ceremony, a flag ceremony, sort of trying to do a flag ceremony that will not be, militaristic. So we're trying to think about how do we do this flag ceremony that's not militaristic?
So no jackboots or anything like that.
Nope. Not going to encourage any marching of any kind in this. I think maybe we'll probably all enter from different spots as soon as we can choreograph in the space. We'll keep it simple. But the plan is for this to is to really give them an opportunity to represent what PlatteForum is and what it will be. And sometimes that's the goal of a good symbol, of a good textile, of a good art piece, right? That it can be one part a history and one part a reflection of the future. One of the things that they love and I love is the progress flag, which you see a lot, and it's only been around since 2018.
Oh wow!
It's right, and that started as a Kickstarter. Designer Daniel Quasar Zay did this flag design, and it has, and everybody's probably seen the progress flag, right? It has the chevron with the trans flag, the Philadelphia flag, and then a black bar to represent the people who died of HIV/AIDS as well. So the black bar kind of has double duty. Anyway, we had this whole conversation about how a symbol doesn't have to be stagnant, or how visuals can point forward and backwards at the same time and be, once again, non-binary, to exist in that space. And so that's kind of what we've been doing. We were using their clothing to design their old T-shirts, and sometimes their dad's old T-shirts or their uncle's old T-shirts are integrated into the things that we're making, integrated into the textiles that they're going to wear and the pieces that'll be on the wall, so that it's, it's me, it's them, it's their own visual language, but with my sort of guidance in this space. So that's, really the concept for the show is, the interns of PlatteForum, and really thinking about how do we work on an art piece that is both the artist and the interns in a new voice. And so I'm excited. For me, that's important, that collaboration that is, sometimes you see collaborations with artists that are, one person does one thing, right? And then the other person does another thing. And then they go back and forth. Or one person creates an object and a person paints on it.
They add to somebody else's work.
Yeah, I always think of the Basquiat Warhol collaborations, which I love, but I also know that there was no conversation, right? It was Warhol did a thing, and then Basquiat kind of made it look cooler, and then Warhol kind of messed it up, and then Basquiat would fix it. Maybe that's how I was seeing it. No shade to either of them; they're both wonderful, but complicated people. But I've always wanted, for me, a collaboration to be a third voice, right? I think that that's the potential. So that's what I always work for in my studio practice, is that when I collaborate, it's not about me putting my signature on a thing, right? But instead is about what's the third voice? What's the other thing we can do together that neither of us can do as an individual, right? It's like a partnership. It's like a family. We have a way to make this third voice between us. And that's what I'm trying to do with the interns. And I think we're getting pretty close. I have a lot of ensembles to finish in the next week or two. But yeah, it's going to be really exciting.
And we're honored that you're going to be our first show in our new space.
Yeah, I'm so excited. My gosh, is it going to be called PlatteForum on Savoy on Curtis Park?
The name of the building is the Savoy at Curtis Park. And then we will be one of the tenants. So. And it's a gorgeous historic building that they're returning to its former glory, which is just lovely. And we couldn't be more giddy about the space.
Yeah, I'm so excited. What a great moment, I think, for you to end, your tenure as executive director, right, with this handing him over to this new gorgeous space.
Mm-hmm.
There's such a great story there, right? I think the sign of a good leader, right, is to leave something better than you saw it, right? And to prepare the thing in which you're leading for the next person to take over, right? And Kim, you've done such a great job with that.
Thank you.
It's, it reflects that once again, I think it reflects this way in which the organization itself is the focus and how you guys have those conversations. And so I'm very, very, very honored to be here and to be part of it. Sorry to be like a fangirl, but I'll do that.
Well, it was, truth be told, I mean, it was a huge group of people that did what we've done in the last 5 years.
Yeah,
the board and Amanda and Rebecca and Esther and Kendall.
Yeah.
And everybody else involved has just been, it's been a labor of love for all of us. So I feel comfortable turning over the reins.
Yeah.
Which I'm and of course I'm not going anywhere. I will be around because I just love this place too much, and I'll still be hanging out, lurking in the shadows, being a volunteer. That sounded creepy when I said that, but I won't be lurking in the shadows. I'll be volunteering.
Okay, you're lurking. So you're like one of those emeritus professors who just kind of hangs out.
No, I'm not going to do that. But no, I will be there and continue to go to shows and everything. And I love the place too much.
Well, cool. Well, I will look forward to seeing you there. And now I have your number in my phone, so I'll be texting you for advice on all my
you can stalk me.
Organizational goals. How do I make this amazing? Thank you so much, Kim, for having this conversation with me today, and thanks so much for having me here at PlatteForum.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
All
Take care.
You too.
PlatteForum is forever grateful for the generous support of so many individuals and organizations who have sustained our work since 2002. And it's through these contributions that we're able to achieve our vision of nurturing social change, promoting emerging artists, and offering dynamic programs to the wider community in Denver. If you would like to sponsor PlatteForum today, visit our website to make a donation at PlatteForum.org, platteforum.org. Thank you.